We're going over System of Pticha, Preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah, by Baal HaSulam, Chapter 1, The Thought of Creation and the Four Phases of Direct Light. Session 6, Coarseness, Purifying Perception. Cleaning Desires.
Cleaning desires, Baal HaSulam, item 10. Thus, you find this nephesh, soul, the light of light that is dressed in the body, extends from his very essence, existence from existence. As it traverses the four worlds, abia, spiritual worlds, it becomes increasingly distant from the light of his face, until it comes into its designated kli, vessel, called guf, body. This is considered that the kli, vessel, has completed its desirable form. And even if the light in it has so diminished that its origin becomes undetectable, through engagement in Torah and mitzvot, commandments, in order to bestow contentment upon the Creator, one purifies one's kli, vessel, called guf, body, until it becomes worthy of receiving the great abundance in the full measure included in the thought of creation when he created it. This is what Rabbi Hananiah meant by the Creator wished to cleanse Israel. Hence, he has given them plentiful Torah and mitzvot, vessel. Explanation, item 10. Thus, you find that the experience dressed in our perception extends from the system itself. When we traverse the four states of perception called controller, alignment, intention, and action, we become increasingly distanced from our initial immature perception until we have a mature perception. This is considered that our perception has completed its maturation. And even if the experience of our perception has diminished from its original manifestation through engagement in cleaning concepts, in order to empower ourselves, we clean our perception until we can manage the great power of expression designed by the system.
Cleaning Desires. Explanation. Number 10. Thus you find that the experience dressed in our perception extends from the system itself. When we traverse the four states of perception called controller, alignment, intention, and action, we become increasingly distant from our initial immature perception until we have a mature perception. This is considered that our perception has completed its maturation. And even if the experience in our perception has diminished from its original manifestation, through engagement in cleaning concepts in order to empower ourselves, we clean our perception until we can manage the great power of expression designed by the system. So what we see here is we see how we've got these four phases in the fourth phase, right? So we're talking about B'china Dalet, the fourth phase, the individual phase. And you've got how it is normally seen before the barrier, which is unformed, chaos, darkness, and spirit. And then it's given new names after the barrier, where after the parsa, when we go back into our ego, after we've gone above our ego, we start calling them controller, alignment, intention, and action. And the idea is that we're able to sense inside ourselves which part is dealing with different issues. Like we went over in the previous session of how the controller is normally what we call the creator within us. And then we've got the alignment, which is the soul within us. Then we've got the intention that we have to align it towards our soul instead of aligning it towards our actions. And then, of course, we've got our action, which is what we do in our daily lives. Spirituality and corporeality.
Spirituality and corporeality. Baal HaSulam, item 11. Now you can understand the real difference between spirituality and corporeality. Anything that contains a complete desire to receive in all its aspects, which is Bahina Dalit, phase 4, is considered corporeal. This is what exists in all elements of reality before us in this world. Conversely, anything above this great measure of desire to receive is considered spirituality. These are the words Abhiya spiritual worlds. These are the worlds Abhiya spiritual worlds. Absolute, Bariya, Yasira, and Asiya. Above this world and the whole reality within them. Now you can see that the whole issue of ascents and descents described in the upper worlds does not relate to an imaginary place, but only to the 4 discernments in the will to receive. The farther it is from Bahina Dalit, phase 4, the higher it is considered to be. And conversely, the closer it is to Bahina Dalit, phase 4, the lower it is considered to be. Explanation, item 11. Now you can understand the real difference between spirituality and corporeality. A complete and mature perception is considered corporeal. This is what exists in all elements of reality before us in this world. Conversely, anything that has not reached maturation is considered spiritual, as these are the worlds we advance through called emanation, creation, formation, and action that match our progress in our perception. Now we can see that the whole issue of ascents and descents described in the states of perception does not relate to physical locations, but only to the 4 phases in our perception. The closer to phase 4 is considered more mature, while the farther from phase 4 is considered less mature.
Mature perception is corporeal. Explanation. Item 11. Now you can understand the real difference between spirituality and corporeality. A complete and mature perception is considered corporeal. This is what exists in all the elements of reality before us in this world. Conversely, anything that has not reached maturation is considered spiritual. These are the worlds we advance through called emanation, creation, formation, and action that match our progress in our perception. Now you can see that the whole issue of ascents and descents described in the states of perception does not relate to physical locations, but only to the 4 phases in our perception. The closer to phase 4 is considered more mature, while the farther from phase 4 is considered less mature. So what we can see here is we've got 2 sides of the story. We've got reality and we've got perception. And the idea is that our reality cascades all the time from boundness, from a state of oneness with the system, and cascades through different states all the way down through primordial man, emanation, creation, formation, and action, and then finally reaches this world, which is corporeal. At the same time, we've got our perception. Now, even though we're all looking at reality where it's in a corporeal, this world situation, our perception actually starts in the boundless. So we're not aligned with reality. What we need to do is cascade and grow and advance with our perception and mature our perception to go through the same states that reality goes through. The difference is that we go through it consciously, while of course reality, we just see the result that we see in the end, which we call this world. So we have to advance through the boundless state, which is the states before the barrier, and we cross the barrier and we enter primordial man, which is from 1.1 to 1.4 after the barrier. Then we go through, there's a mid state, which is the world of deficiencies, which is 2.1 to 2.4. And then on that clothes emanation, which we go through from 3.1 to 3.4. And then what we do is we correct creation, which is 4.1. We then correct formation, which is 4.2. And then finally, we correct action, which is 4.3. And then we go through 4.4, and then we reach end of correction. So the idea is, you can see that the idea of end of correction is when our perception is aligned to reality. So we're perceiving with a mature perception, and we're perceiving a mature reality.
Okay, so we have ascents and descents all along the way. The descents, we don't want to connect, we don't want to have anything to do with the environment. So all the way up to Kamartikun, we have to force ourselves above reason to uh, uh, empower ourselves with the environment, even if we don't want to connect?
We don't have to force ourselves anything. The connection you have to do with the environment is before you reach a descent. When you're in a descent, it's already too late. What you need to do is convince yourself why you need the environment. And then even when you're in a state of descent, you'll still want to cling to the environment because you know that they'll help you. Caesar asks, we become increasingly distant from initial immature perception until we have a mature perception. This is considered that our perception has completed its maturation. So his question is, what kind of maturation is that? The maturation of the vessel of reception? So yes, the idea is that we're maturing our perception. We call the perception the vessel of reception because it's what's receiving reality, right? Our perception receives reality into us. And the idea is that we want to mature that to not only just better concepts, but we're basically aligning our consciousness to our subconscious. We're learning more about who we really are and how we function, and the desires that we already have in our subconscious. We bring them into our consciousness so we're aware of them. It's not talking about doing different actions. It's about learning more about yourself to understand that if you don't understand yourself, how are you going to be able to understand others, and how are you going to be able to consistently do what you want. So part of the problem is that because we don't understand our internal subconscious desires, we don't understand why when we consciously want something, it turns out something totally different. So the idea is to learn about ourselves and how we function, how our perception cascades within us from our subconscious to our consciousness so we can deal with it better.
Okay, there's one point you made, that is when we reach a descent, it's already too late. So you mean we can, if we are prepared, very prepared, we can go from ascent to ascent?
No, so it is, you'll still be in a state of descent, but your descent won't be towards the environment. Your descent will be towards yourself, that you feel underpowered, but your descent won't be towards the environment.
Oh, so internal manifestation and not external manifestation.
Exactly. And you can see how in this diagram, you can see it's the total opposite of what we're normally taught. We're normally taught that we are corporeal and we need to reach the spiritual. And what we see here is the total opposite, that we actually are, our perception is spiritual before the barrier. And we need to actually corporealize it. We need to make it mature. We need to make it sort of finish its growth. And just like reality finishes its growth by going from spiritual to corporeal, the same thing has to happen with our perception. We need to corporalize our perception. We need to have alignment. We have to have equalization of form between our perception and what we're trying to perceive, which is reality. It doesn't say that the world is upside down for no reason. Cleaning coarseness.
Cleaning coarseness. Baal HaSulam 12. We should understand that the essence of the creature and of the creation as holy is only the will to receive. Anything beyond is not part of the creation, but extend from his essence, by way of existence from existence. Thus, why do we discern this will to receive as avut, thickness, and turbidity, and we are commanded to cleanse it through Torah and mitzvot, commanded to the point that without it we will not achieve the sublime goal of the thought of the creation? Explanation 12. We should understand that our substance is our perception, will to receive. The sensations are from the system. Thus, why do we discern our perception as coarseness and therefore need to clean our concepts to the point that without the maturation of our perception, we will not achieve the sublime goal of the system?
Cleaning coarseness. Explanation. Number 12. We should understand that our substance is our perception, will to receive. The sensations are from the system. Thus, why do we discern our perception as coarseness, and therefore need to clean our concepts to the point that without the maturation of our perception, we will not achieve the sublime goal of the system? So what we can see here is we've got the system, which we call the light. We also call it reality. And what it does is it basically, we attract into our vessel, which is perception, we attract the sensations, which is basically we attract situations into our lives. We attract not only the reality situation itself, but we also attract our response to it.
So what is the difference the system from the light? Is the same thing? It's a light, it means what? Reality? Sensation is a reality too?
Yeah, so the idea is that what we're trying to express in this diagram is to show how the light is attracted by the vessel perception. So the idea is that the perception takes the light, you could say reality, which is uniform, and gives it sensations, gives it expression, you could say, gives it form. Right? So the idea is that we attract into ourselves, we attract the light. The light doesn't shine on us. We attract the light into our perception. So the idea is that the light is very passive, and the perception is what is the active element. So there's no point sort of complaining of why did reality give me a situation, because reality doesn't give you anything. You're attracting those situations into your life.
But this system itself has a perception. The system is the total.
The system doesn't have a perception, because by defining a perception is limited. Right? So the system doesn't have a perception, because saying that the system has a perception would be like saying that the system is perceiving every single atom, element from different viewpoints at all times. The system, the whole idea of the system is that there's no limiting factor. So when we say that the creator doesn't have a will to receive, what are we trying to say? The creator has no limitation. The system doesn't limit itself. A perception limits what it sees, what it views, its viewpoint, its understanding. It's always about limitations. When you're collecting discernments, you're limiting part of what you're looking at, and you're trying to gain details out of it. So we said that the light is uniform. That means that there are no details in it. And we extract the details. We make the details with our perception.
So the creator has no perception?
No. Because for the creator to have a perception, it would mean that the creator was limited.
And you're saying we attract this to us. That's our subconscious is bringing it in.
Exactly.
Right? And it's our subconscious is attracting is what we need to advance if we can become aware of it.
Exactly. And if we're not aware of it, we see it as tension. You could say it's a descent. And when we're aware of it, it becomes an ascent, which we convert into power.
Good.
Well, every step of the way, everything we're attracting is always constantly to grow in internal power, right? That's the only...
Exactly. That's the only goal. That's the goal of creation.
Right. So even if you reach end the correction, that's still the case.
Yes. It's end of correction, not end of expression.
But
So,
if you're in alignment, you see it coming, right? You know what's going to happen, pretty much.
Well, it's not that when you're in alignment, it doesn't mean you know the future, but it means you're aligned with whatever will come without you having to know about it. Like, you don't have to have information. It's like, if you have to have information to sort of prepare yourself, then that shows, you could say, some lack of alignment, because why would you need to know the information of the future if you were totally aligned? right? So if you're needing knowledge of the future to prepare yourself for it, then it's on some sense it's showing like that you're not having alignment in that situation. It doesn't mean that we don't want to know about the future and we just don't want to know anything. But the things that generally we know about the future is not the future itself. Rather, we sort of see the way things are going. So we're not actually getting information from the future. Rather, we're sort of predicting. It's more like predictive future. That's normally what we do. We do deduction, but we're not actually sensing the future.
So before the barrier, we grow our perception or ego or will to achieve as high as big as and large as it can be to pull down as much light as possible.
So the idea is what we're doing before the barrier, we're building a perception, but in potential, and that's what the circle represents, right? The circle represents potential, and the line represents actual. So, because we always draw the circles before the barrier, the idea is that we're collecting the potential of what we'll have afterwards. We don't actually have it; we have the potential of it. Then after the barrier, that's when we actualize our potential. So we collect the maximum potential before the barrier, then we implement that potential and convert it from potential to actuality after the barrier. It's like if someone buys a phone, then even though you say they have a phone, but their use of it is in potential. And then what they need to do is actually start using the phone, and that converts that potential use into actual use.
So Zakai, you can say we are the creator because you have this perception. We can see from a perspective. You can see the creation, and you can go further and see it's coming from the sense. That's why you can have this idea.
What do you mean?
We are the creator.
Right, so but see what we're saying when we say we are the creator, we're saying we're tied to the system, and because we're tied to the system, we're basically saying we are the system. Just like when we say we have a subconscious, we don't sort of claim that our subconscious is separate from us. Like there's me and there's a subconscious. There's no connection between them. We don't say that. We say that in me, I have a subconscious. Do I feel my subconscious? No, that's why it's called subconscious. But just because I don't feel it doesn't mean it's not part of me. We do the same with the system and the same with the creator. From their actions, we know you. So do we ever actually sense the subconscious in us? No. What we're sensing is the results in our consciousness, and we're basically agreeing for our subconscious to sort of feed our consciousness more understanding, more awareness, more revelation of evil, which means more revelation of immaturity, how we were constantly causing ourselves grief in our lives, and it wasn't others that were causing us grief, rather we were attracting it the whole entire time. And the more we can accept that, that's how we gain more and more degrees. Most of the path is basically acceptance to move to the next degree.
What is the relationship between internal power and love of friends?
So the idea that love of friends, in its an external manifestation, are friends that you're going to basically connect with to clean concepts. Right? You're going to connect to them, you're going to listen to them, you're going to hear their opinions, their perception, and grow your perception. The result of collecting those discernments from the friends will result in internal power. That's why we say we go from love of friends to love of the creator. So the cause is love of friends, that is the discernments I'm collecting is the cause. And the consequence is love of the creator, that we basically learn how to love ourselves. We learn to love the creator within us, within our subconscious, and we advance accordingly in the degrees.
But on the internal love of friends, which is that they are not outside of me but inside of me, is that in itself the internal power?
You could say yes. You could say when you're collecting discernments from the friends, You're basically internalizing the friends within you. Since if the friend said something, you're not actually just collecting discernment and separated from the friend. You're learning more about the friends as well. You're learning more about how they work as well. So you're basically internalizing the friends within you. And the result of internalizing the friends within you, it's what we call that, we say the friends are the vessel, and we say that the creator is the light, and that the light fills the vessel. So by collecting the discernments, which is the love of friends, and internalizing that love of friends within you, which means internalizing the discernments you collect from the friends, the result of that is they become an attraction for more internal power from the system. So it's not that the love of friends is internal power. The love of friends allows you to attract internal power. Separation.
Separation, Baal Salam, item 13. The thing is that as corporeal objects are separated from one another by remoteness of location, spirituals are separated from each other by the disparity of form between them. This can be found in our world too. For example, when two people share similar views, they like each other, and the remoteness of location does not cause them to draw far from one another. Conversely, when their views are far, they are hateful of each other, and proximity of location will not bring them any closer. Thus, a disparity of form in their views removes them from each other, and the proximity of form in their views brings them closer to each other. If, for example, one's nature is the complete opposite of another's, they are as far from one another as the east from the west. Explanation, item 13. The concept is that as objects in reality are separated from one another by a difference of physical location, perceptions are separated from each other by the change of form between them. This applies in reality. When two people share similar views, they like each other and their location does not play a factor in their closeness of opinions. Conversely, when they disagree in their opinions, they are separated from each other, and even if they are close physically to each other, that does not help them bridge their disagreement. Thus, the difference in their views separates them from each other, and the proximity of their views brings them closer to each other. If, for example, one's perception is the complete opposite of another's, they are as far from one another as the east from the west.
Proximity of views. Explanation, item 13. The concept is that as objects in reality are separated from one another by difference of physical location, perceptions are separated from each other by the change of form between them. This applies in reality when two people share similar views. They like each other, and the location does not play a factor in their closeness of opinions. Conversely, when they disagree in their opinions, they are separated from each other, and even if they are close physically to each other, that does not help them bridge their disagreement. Thus, the difference in their views separates them from each other, and the proximity of their views brings them closer to each other. If, for example, one's perception is the complete opposite of another's, they are as far from one another as the east from the west. So what we can see here is proximity circles. So we've got humanity, which you could say has contact with the spiritual society, but has more understanding and acceptance of the individual. And likewise, the individual has more acceptance for humanity than the individual has acceptance of the spiritual society. You can see the proximity that they're further away, there's more disagreement between the individual and the spiritual society. And you've got the group, which again has proximity with the individual and touches the spiritual society, but still has some distance from humanity.
What is the relationship between the perceptions that we matured as they lay on top of each other? Does one affect the other? Like, in other words, if we had not matured this perception, this other one would not have come up?
Yeah, so the idea is that, first of all, if you haven't matured, you wouldn't have reached the individual phase. And the other thing is that the individual phase continues to mature. the humanity within you and the spiritual society within you and the group within you as well. So it's like, think of it that every degree which is higher, which has more coarseness, you could say, pulls with it also the lower degrees as well, and sort of allows to, like an accordion, allows to express more detail within the phases because you've got more of a higher pulling power accordingly. Disparity of form.
Disparity of form. Bal-Hasulam. Similarly, all matters of nearness and remoteness, coupling and unity that unfold in spirituality are but measures of disparity of form. They depart from one another according to their measure of disparity of form, and become attached to one another according to their measure of equivalence of form. Yet, you should understand that although the will to receive is a mandatory law in the creature, as it is the essence of the creature and the proper kli, vessel, for reception of the goal of the thought of creation, it nonetheless completely separates it from the emanator. This is so because there is disparity of form to the point of oppositeness between itself and the emanator. This is because the emanator is complete bestowal without a shred of reception, and the creature is complete reception without a shred of bestowal. Thus, there is no greater oppositeness of form than that. It therefore follows that the oppositeness of the form necessarily separates it from the emanator. Explanation. Similarly, all manifestations of separation and connection that result from our subconscious are expressions of our internal discrepancy. They separate from one another according to the intensity of disagreement and become connected to one another according to their agreement. Yet, you should understand that although we are born with an immature perception of desiring passive filling, it is required since it contains the needed states for implementing our expression of internal power in the future. However, it nonetheless completely separates us from the intention of the controller, which is about active power. This is because the controller is in complete control without any need for passive filling in reality, while we are born with a desire for passive filling without any desire for active control over our experience. Thus, there is no greater opposition of intention than that. It therefore follows that this separation necessarily prevents us from sensing the controller within us.
Internal discrepancy. Explanation. Similarly, all manifestations of separation and connection that result from our subconscious are expressions of our internal discrepancy. They separate from one another according to the intensity of disagreement and become connected to one another according to their agreement. So what we can see is a very simple diagram where our subconscious is what is manifesting our consciousness, right? Which is also what we see reality with. And also our subconscious goes through our expression and manifests reality. So we've got the manifestation of reality, which is the reality that we see outside of us in our senses. We see reality with our senses through our consciousness, and what is controlling our consciousness with it, the desires and opinions and thoughts and emotions, the subconscious sends to the consciousness. So you can see like two ways the consciousness is being affected, through the subconscious and through reality.
Does this mean that the reality is both the cause and the effect?
Exactly. And the whole idea when we get a screen is to sort of understand that we've got these two boxes. We've got the subconscious and the expression that are manifesting reality, and therefore reality is not the cause of our problems, but actually the consequence, that our subconscious is manifesting our reality. So the solution is not to correct reality, but rather to work on the connection between the conscious and the subconscious.
So it's a matter of becoming aware of our concepts and perceptions, right?
Exactly, that's alignment. And then afterwards, when you actually reach that alignment, then you can start to have effect on your expression as well, and sort of attract different situations than you were doing before. So you could say alignment is learning about yourself, and then expression is working as yourself, acting as yourself. That's why it says expression without alignment is called darkness. Because you want things to happen, because you don't have that alignment with your subconscious, you've got like a discrepancy between what you think you're meant to manifest and what you're actually manifesting.
But you said that expression without alignment wasn't possible.
That's why it's called darkness. Because you see that it doesn't work.
Because what?
Because you see that it doesn't work. It's called darkness because you wanted something to happen, and let's say even the opposite happened. So expression without alignment is called darkness. So expression, of course, is Ol Chokhmah, the light of wisdom, and alignment is Ol Chasadim, the light of mercy. So light of wisdom without the light of mercy is darkness. Maria asked 2 questions. So basically at every point, even after ender correction, we always will have a degree of immaturity, since we will always have the mandatory will to receive, need to express. So the idea is that when we talk about, there's 2 parts with immaturity. There's immaturity in alignment, which is what we're correcting until end of correction. Then afterwards you're dealing with immaturity, not of the alignment, not with your alignment between your conscious and subconscious of yourself, rather with your interaction with reality. There's your interaction with people and how you're meant to work with them and all the different nuances and the structure of the system. You're going to be dealing with more of those details, but you're not going to be, let's say like this, if you're taught something, it's much easier for you to grasp it because you're aligned between your conscious and subconscious. And the second question, does the dotted box expression imply that it's concealed expression? If so, should there also be a conscious expression box? So the idea is that the idea of the expression, and the reason why these are both dotted boxes is because you don't actually feel them directly. You don't feel your subconscious and you don't feel the expression. What you feel is in your consciousness, you might feel a raised emotional state or have different thoughts come into you, but this is not what's actually manifesting reality. So the reality is not manifested through your consciousness. The reality is manifested still through your subconscious. The idea that your consciousness can sort of, you could look at it both ways. You could either say your consciousness is affecting your subconscious, or you could say that because your consciousness is aligned with your subconscious can manifest a different reality because your consciousness is ready for it.
I basically wanted to differentiate. I don't know why my mind was painting that there was going to be 2 types of expression boxes, because for the at a certain immature level, we bump heads because we're, let's say, idol worshiping, thinking that someone outside of us is causing all these things that we're feeling tension with. So for me, that represented like subconscious expression. We're expressing it, but we don't have that alignment yet. And then I was thinking that there would be another box that said expression, not with the dotted line, but mainly you're actively controlling, you're consciously expressing.
So it is that even when you're consciously expressing, the idea is that what you're conscious of isn't actually what does the expression. So, we give an example of, let's say you've got 3 people and they're waiting for the bus. And the bus arrives at 11. You've got the first person who wants the bus to arrive, but thought that the bus is meant to arrive at 10:30. And he's pissed that the bus is late, right? So he's not aligned with reality, which the bus came at 11. You've got the second person who's in alignment. He walks to the bus stop, and suddenly the bus stands right in front of him. He's like, oh, isn't that great? Gets on the bus, goes down the road. You've got the third person who at 10:57 gets this feeling. He's like, you know what? I'm going to make the bus come right now. And 3 minutes later, the bus comes. He feels, I manifested that reality. Gets on the bus, drives down the road. All three people are taking the exact same bus. So the idea is that the experience, though, of each of them are totally different. So even though the bus in reality is coming at the exact specific time of 11, let's say a.m., each person has a different experience. You've got the first person who's trying to do expression without alignment, and therefore he feels darkness, he feels that failure, and he's like, why is this not working? You've got the second person who's got alignment without expression, so he doesn't feel, I made this happen. Rather, he's like, oh, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this great? So he has alignment with reality. And then you've got the third person. He not only does he have alignment, but he can sort of be, he can like prepare for it. He's like, I'm going to make it come, and therefore I can prepare because I know that the bus is going to come. And it's not that he's looked at the timetable or anything. He just feels it. He feels that I'm going to make the bus come, and therefore I can now prepare for the bus coming at 11 a.m. And we said at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if the person controlled that expression or whether the person feels that expression. Because at the end of the day, we're always dealing with feeling. And we're learning more and more that it doesn't really actually matter what's in reality in and of itself. It's how we experience that reality. It's like a person, let's say his plane is late and he feels angry. He's disappointed. He's like, I'm missing my flight. I don't understand. And afterwards find out that the plane crashed. Then he's so happy. It's like, what is the difference between the two? Well, the difference was that in the first one, in the first situation where he's angry that the plane isn't here, the plane is crashed. That's why it's not here. But he doesn't know that. And therefore, because he doesn't have that alignment, he's feeling the situation is terrible. Then afterwards, when he's told that the plane crashed, he suddenly feels amazing. So it doesn't really matter what the reality is that the plane crashed. What matters is the way that we feel that situation. We don't understand how much we're dependent on the way we experience things and not the things themselves.
So at the end of the day, neither of the three had any free will. Like it was predetermined that the bus was going to get here at 11 a.m. But the difference, I would say, because now I can imagine some asking, then alignment and this power can be sensed in the imagination. But I guess the difference in expression would be that there's a shared feeling of this particular third person saying, before it happened, I'm going to make it happen, versus someone. I'm trying to differentiate between the person who's in an in a state of imagination, stating, I am the Messiah or the Creator, and so forth.
So you could basically say that at the end of the day, what matters not if it's in your imagination or not, but when sort of you crash down into reality. So when the person is, let's say, in his imagination, he might feel various sensations and feel amazing. You see, I'm one with the system, all different thoughts like that. It's when he crashes into reality and suddenly his imagination ceases to affect his situations. And that's, I'd say, one of the big differences between imagination and what we're doing with advancement. Because in advancement, you're aware of reality, you're able to respond to reality. You're not just in your imagination and just thinking things. You're able to see the results. You're able to see the growth. You're able to see how you go through phase and how the way you respond to situations and the way you express those situations change over time. And you can also share it with other people, which I think is another advantage, is that normally with imagination, each person has their own imagination. And here you could say there's like a shared area between people, because every person who reaches a certain degree feels what the other person feels in that degree as well.
Cannot control means attraction or pulling too, you know. Let's say you control the situation because you attract the situation you need for that moment, you know. That's why you control, because you're now waiting for the situation just happening. You just attract the situation you need, and that's the reason you're in the control of that situation.
Exactly. You could say like this: if you're feeling that you're manifesting reality, then that's called expression. And if you're feeling that you're controlling your response to reality, then that's called alignment.
And expression is a much more higher or powerful state than alignment. Is that right?
Exactly. You could say the difference between alignment and expression is between offense, which is expression, and defense, which is alignment. So in defense, when you're in alignment, a situation might be bad outside, but the idea is you're able to sort of control your response to it, and you're able to not get lost in it, but able to observe it and control your response to the situation. That's alignment. That's defense, because you're trying to handle the situation that is being attacked towards you. With expression, you're in offense. You're actually manifesting situations. You're controlling the situations. You feel that sensation of control. You don't feel like you're defending yourself. You're actually going out and changing your desires and doing this and doing this and doing that. And people see your success. And they're like, wow, you know, how are you doing this? That's the other advantage that expression has over imagination. With imagination, other people can't see the results. But with expression, other people can see the results. They're like, I saw this person in the past and things weren't going well for him. Now I'm suddenly seeing him attracting all these great situations into his life. His life looks so much better. How does he do it? So you've got like third-party spectators that are looking at the results of your expression, and they can actually see tangible results. And they might get envy of it as well. So it's not just in the imagination.
Cleaning concepts always have to do with what the Kabbalists wrote. I mean, like a concept that you haven't cleaned is because you still understand what the Kabbalists wrote in a way that is not correct. Like it's always related. Cleaning concept is always related to the writings of the Kabbalists.
No, clean concepts can relate to any concept that you have. It can also relate to concepts of humanity, of how humanity works, how racism works, for example, class mechanisms, money structures, all different things like that. There are many concepts to be cleaned in that area as well. So you could say this concept is clean on any degree.
So for advancement, do we need the books all the way up to Gamartikun, or with the group only? We can do it.
Well, we need the books before and after endo correction. I'd say that most of the time in the books is actually spent after endo correction, not before. Most of the understanding of the Kabbalah books will be after the endo correction, not before. Before you're just trying to align yourself to, sort of, you could say, to learn your internal language. Then once you're aligned with yourself, then you can start to understand the concepts that the Kabbalists were trying to express with more detail.
So cleaning concepts is actually cleaning the understanding of how the system works.
Exactly. Passive and active. Yet, you should understand that although we are born with an immature perception of desiring passive feeling, it is required since it contains the needed states for implementing our expression of internal power in the future. However, it nonetheless completely separates us from the intention of the controller, which is about active power. This is because the controller is in complete control without any need for passive feeling in reality, while we are born with a desire for passive feeling without any desire for active control over our experience. Thus, there is no greater opposition of intention than that. It therefore follows that this separation necessarily prevents us from sensing the controller within us. So you can see how in a passive state, an immature state is when we're in control, where we're being controlled by the system. We have no awareness that we're in control. We think that we might have free choice and that the system isn't controlling us. And that is a immature perception. When we mature ourselves, we get to the point where we're having an active feeling of control over our lives. We have a mature perception, and we sense ourselves as the controller. We're not responding to reality anymore. Rather, we're manifesting reality. And therefore, we understand that what we see in reality is always the result of our internal state that we're manifesting. So we become more active in our experiences and less passive. We become more mature with understanding of the differences and the oppositions and the discernments and dichotomies than in our passive, immature perception where we're either dealing with either white or black. It's like we're either Republican or Democrat. We're either, pro of something or against something. And the idea is when we have a mature perception, we can understand both of the sides. We might choose a specific side in both of those sides, but we have awareness of the bigger picture. Marie asked, you referred to passive filling, so do you also want to know that the mature is active filling? So when we normally say the word filling, we normally refer it to as passive, like when you're filling a bottle. That's a passive experience from the bottle, right? The bottle just gets filled. While with power, we don't normally use the word filling because there's like an active role in it. With power, it's like, like power doesn't get filled in the cables, power flows through the cables. It's more of an active experience than a passive experience. So normally when we talk about filling, we're talking about external filling. And when we talk about power, we're normally talking about internal power. You could say that the result of internal power is that you feel a filling in your consciousness. But the idea is that that filling is not a passive one. It's an active one. You feel like I'm doing things. You're not just responding to situations. You're manifesting the situations. There's power involved and not just this, just fill me up. I think we'll stop here and do the after party.